Fordlandia, Brazil, 1928–1934. Long ago, in the late 1920s, one of the most powerful men in the world believed he could design the perfect society from scratch. His name was Henry Ford. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't a philosopher. He was an industrialist who had already changed how the world worked. And now he wanted to change how people lived. By 1927, Henry Ford faced a problem that threatened his empire. Rubber. Ford's factories depended on it for tires, seals, belts, but the global rubber supply was controlled by British plantations in Southeast Asia. Prices were unstable. Access was uncertain. Ford didn't want dependence. He wanted control. So he did something no industrialist had ever attempted before. He decided to build his own city. Not a factory town. A utopia. In 1928, Ford purchased 2.5 million acres of land along the Tapajós River in the Brazilian Amazon. The location was remote, dense, and unforgiving, but it offered something crucial. Rubber trees. Ford believed modern industry could tame nature. He believed efficiency could replace tradition. And most importantly, he believed American values could be exported anywhere. The city would be called Fordlandia. From the beginning, Fordlandia was designed to be perfect. Neat rows of white houses, manicured lawns, hospitals, schools, and libraries. There would be no alcohol, no smoking, no traditional local customs. Instead, workers would live by Ford's rules. American-style homes, scheduled meals, square dancing instead of samba, hamburgers instead of local food. This wasn't just about rubber. It was about reshaping people. Almost immediately, the plan began to unravel. The Amazon did not behave like Michigan. Rubber trees planted close together were ravaged by disease. Insects destroyed crops faster than they could be replaced. The climate was brutal. Heat, humidity, and flooding turned routine tasks into exhausting ordeals. But the biggest problem wasn't nature. It was culture. Ford's strict rules clashed violently with local life. Workers were forbidden from drinking alcohol in a region where it was part of daily social life. Food was unfamiliar. Work schedules ignored the heat of the day. Surveillance was constant. Resentment grew. People weren't living in a utopia. They were living in a controlled experiment. In 1930, tensions finally exploded. Workers revolted. They smashed equipment. They destroyed property. They chased managers into the jungle. The Brazilian military had to be called in to restore order. Fordlandia, the perfect city, had become ungovernable. Despite the chaos, Ford refused to give up. More money was poured in. More managers were sent, more rules were enforced. But the problems kept multiplying. Disease wiped out rubber trees, workers left, infrastructure decayed. What was supposed to be a self-sustaining utopia became a financial and logistical disaster. By 1934, less than a decade after it began, Fordlandia was already failing. The city still stood, but the dream behind it was collapsing. And that leaves the question that history would later answer brutally. How did one of the most ambitious utopias ever built fall apart in less than 10 years? Fordlandia, Brazil, 1934–1945. By 1934, the truth was impossible to ignore. Fordlandia was no longer a bold experiment in progress. It was a struggling settlement held together by money, stubbornness, and denial. Yet Henry Ford refused to abandon it. When reports reached Ford's headquarters detailing disease, unrest, and collapsing rubber yields, the response was not retreat. It was escalation. New managers were sent from the United States, rules were tightened, productivity targets were raised. Ford believed the problem was not the idea, it was execution. If workers resisted, they needed discipline. If nature resisted, it needed control. More land was cleared, more trees were planted, more money was spent. But the Amazon was not a system that could be optimized. The fundamental mistake never changed. Rubber trees in the wild grow far apart. Ford's plantations placed them close together, creating the perfect environment for fungus and insects to spread unchecked. Entire groves were wiped out in weeks. No amount of American engineering could rewrite ecological reality. Fordlandia wasn't just inefficient, it was biologically impossible. The Utopia had been built on a misunderstanding of the land itself. While crops failed, morale collapsed. Workers left whenever they could. Those who stayed lived under strict surveillance, foreign customs, and rigid schedules that ignored local climate and culture. Ford's vision of a moral, orderly society felt less like a community and more like a company town without consent. What was designed to uplift workers instead alienated them. And a utopia without willing participants cannot survive. In 1934, Ford quietly began shifting operations to a new site downstream called Belterra, hoping a fresh start would succeed where Fordlandia failed. It didn't. By 1945, Henry Ford II officially shut down operations in the Amazon. The dream ended not with an announcement, but with paperwork. Fordlandia was abandoned. Less than 10 years after its peak, the city was left to the jungle. Today, Fordlandia still exists, but not as Henry Ford imagined. Rusting machinery sits in overgrown fields. White wooden houses sag under the weight of humidity. The hospital still stands, so does the water tower, proudly bearing Ford's name. Locals live among the ruins, repurposing what remains. The jungle is reclaiming everything else. Fordlandia didn't vanish. It was absorbed. Fordlandia collapsed because it violated three truths every utopia ignores. Culture cannot be overwritten. Nature cannot be standardized. People cannot be optimized like machines. Henry Ford mastered mass production, but societies are not factories. And when efficiency replaces empathy, utopia becomes control. Fordlandia wasn't destroyed by war, rebellion, or disaster. It failed because it tried to impose perfection without understanding the people or the place. In less than a decade, one of the most ambitious social experiments in history collapsed, not from lack of resources, but from too much certainty. The city didn't fail quietly. It failed completely. If you want more true history documentaries about failed utopias, forgotten cities, and ambitious ideas that unraveled faster than anyone expected, subscribe to the channel. Because history isn't shaped by perfect plans. It's shaped by the moments when they fall apart.